Country Life on Midlands 103. Brought to you by W. Orshaw, Burlington Business Park, Tullamore. Supplier of New Holland's tractors in the Midlands. worshaw.ie.
Good evening and welcome to Country Life here in Midlands 103. It's MJ Clery with you until 8 p.m. this evening, bringing the latest from the Midlands and further afield from the worlds of agriculture, food and agri-business. Thank you all for joining me this evening as always. In a moment, Paul O'Brien from the IFA is going to give me an update on the IFA protest against Board Bia Chair Larry Murren. We're going to talk about that in just a moment. There is a Dáil vote occurring this evening on that also, so extremely topical this evening over the course of the next couple of hours. Also later in the programme, land is the topic of discussion, where Paul Mooney from the Irish Farmers Journal joins us to speak about their annual land report. It saw land prices rise to an average of just under €13,000 at €12,876 in 2025. That was a rise of 3% from 2024, so a really strong figure there, and we're going to thrash through that a little bit later here on the programme. Staying on the topic of land and on a more local note, Kilkenny-based auctioneer Joe Coogan let 2 parcels of land in County Laois on a 10-year term for very strong figures indeed earlier this week. So more on that a little later, and we'll also see what else Joe has on the books in the Midlands for 2026. Towards the end of the programme, we move on to organics, with 269 farmers accepted to the organic farming scheme for 2026. Joe Kelleher from Teagasc joins me live from Germany, where he is attending the world's leading trade fair for organic food. It's called Biofac. More on that a little bit later. Also good news for Laois tillage farmer Bobby Miller. He scooped the top gong at last night's Tirlawn Grain Awards in County Cork, Grower of the Year, and a word with Bobby a little bit later on that also. Now text me, WhatsApp me 083 30 10 103. Happy to present to our guests here this evening, and as I said, starting with Paul O'Brien from the IFA to give us an update, please. Paul, obviously we all know what's occurring up in Dublin with the Board Bia offices and the IFA sit in and stand out. Can you give us an update as to where we're at the moment, please, Paul?
Okay, well, very good evening to you, MJ, and to all of your listeners. And look, I suppose at the moment our president is in front of the Joint Oireachtas Committee for Agriculture, and are having the right of reply to the hearing last Thursday, where Larry Murren, the Board Bia chairman, had the opportunity to speak to the Joint Oireachtas Committee. And now this is IFA's turn tonight, where we're, our Deputy President Alice Doyle as well as Damien MacDonald, our Chief Executive, our Director General. So they're tonight talking to the Joint Oireachtas Committee, like Board Bia did and like Larry Murren did last week. And really where we are now is that, we've highlighted a number of concerns that we have on the back of the testimony coming from Larry Murren last week, including things such as, the status of his company, whether it was actually, Origin Green certified or not, which he, statements were taken down off the website on Friday after he corrected himself in the Dáil. So as a result of that, MJ, that's happening as we speak. It's ongoing. After that tonight, there is a vote. The debate was on last Wednesday of last week. It's a Sinn Féin motion, which they're saying that they have no confidence in the Board Bia chairman. It's been opposed by the government with their counter motion back that they have full faith in Larry Murren to continue as chair. Now, obviously, there's a vote. There's 5 votes in favour of the government. That's the majority that they have in the Dáil. And as a result of that, we're expecting that to be won by the government and lost by Sinn Féin. And I suppose really, MJ, over the last couple of weeks, we've been speaking to lots of politicians and TDs and senators. A lot of them even in our area here in South Leinster, but particularly guys in the Midlands that, that we're dealing with. They've all said to us that they fundamentally think there's questions that need to be asked by the chairman. And if they were allowed to go themselves without the party whip being used, they would probably at that stage vote against the confidence of having the chairman still remain in charge. But because this is a whip and because this is a government taking on the opposition, they're going to be forced to go and effectively, vote against their conscience in order to protect the government's position. So that's where we are now. This will now evolve into Friday, where there's been a meeting convened by the Minister for Agriculture to bring all stakeholders into a negotiation. Board beer will be one of the topics, but we're not sure at the moment. There's no agenda, but we're not sure how much detail we'll be allowed to go into. And looking, our president will be there representing members of the IFA. And MJ, where are we then? We're still continuing with 5 of our members and 2 of our National Council. Tom Byrne from Wicklow, Richard Moran from Cavan, Patrick McCormack, our National Treasurer from Monaghan, Teresa Roach from Galway, and Christina Friel from Donegal. Teresa, as you know, is our Farm Family Chair, and they still remain in the offices of Board Beer. So obviously, we want to try and get a conclusion to this as quick as possible. But the reality is that the IFA never seeked this fight. We never seeked this war that's now going on between 2 sides that have become very entrenched. And speaking as an IFA person, yes, we're very entrenched in our view. We believe fundamentally that there's a double standards here. There's a hypocrisy, that the chairman of Board Beer should be above all suspicion. We've never suggested that he's done anything legally wrong, but what we have suggested that there's a moral compass here that we think is pointing directly away from the chairman's position as being, I suppose, the figurehead of an organisation that brings scrutiny to 55,000 farmers across the country. So I suppose that's a snapshot of where we are. A lot of moving parts, MJ, but I do think it's very important to bring members and people in the general public up to date, because there's a lot of questions about this. It might only be 1% of beef coming in. Really not sure of the tonnage of. We believe there's probably the equivalent of 40 million chickens came in to Dawn Farm Foods factories last year. So that's a big amount of product going into the Irish market. And we've got concerns about that, legitimate concerns that our members are suggesting to us that, we want better standards here. There can't be a double standard. There can't be scrutiny on Irish farmers, where meanwhile the chair, there's a turning the blind eye to some of his performance. And as I say, there's nothing legally what he's done wrong. But morally, we think that there's double standards that most certainly we're not happy with.
Just on the Dáil vote this evening, Paul, and I'm not overly familiar with what would occur here, just kicking the ball off the wall really, but look, it is the whip, so they have to vote with the government. But is there a chance that some backbenchers may vote against this, or is that just definitively not allowed if you're in the party? Like you'll be given detention or whatever will occur as a result of it. It just can't occur that you'll vote against the government. Is that the case?
Well, because this is an opposition motion, this is effectively the opposition taking on the government, and the government will be expecting everybody, to vote on its own side. The government have a 5-seat majority, I believe, at the moment, and as a result of that, any slippage would be very worrying times for the government. So, they will be told to go in and vote against the motion. So that's unfortunately, look, it's politics. But ultimately we're asking, TDs to actually vote with their conscience, as opposed to being whipped into a position where they have to vote because they've been told to by their whip of their party.
And in relation to the protest then, Paul, presuming that that vote goes in the way of the government this evening and these joint Oireachtas committee meeting this evening, then you have your meeting on Friday. As you say, there's a lot of moving parts. But as it stands at the moment, no end to the IFA protest?
No end to the IFA protest, unfortunately. Like, it's a busy time, as you know, on farms, MJ, and we're asking for a very big commitment from our members. But look, we're filling the rota. There's a rota every, 4 times a day. We're asking people to come and do, 5 or 6 hours. And look, I've done 5 nights myself personally up in Dublin over the last couple of weeks. And it's a very cold spot up there, but you do have to stand up for your beliefs. And, I'm asking maybe if there's a call from your county chair, or if you believe that this is so important that, you want to get involved, make contact with your county chair, whether it's in County Laois, County Offaly or Westmeath, and then, look, be a part of the rota. It's only a couple of hours, but most certainly, there's a belief that this is so fundamentally important, that we can't let this drop. And I just want to be very clear here, and so there's no confusion. The IFA do not want to bring Bord Bia down. We have put, since 1994, since it was first constituted and developed as a concept, and now to become, I suppose, the marketing body of over 20 billion worth of sales for farming. That's built on the back of farmers' hard work. We most certainly want to see Bord Bia thrive. But the problem we now have is that confidence in the system has become so fundamentally flawed that, we're now receiving calls from farmers about doing audits and, should they do audits? And then that's a very worrying place to be. We need to get this moved on. There's so many more other problems that we have in farming, MJ, and I suppose really the reality is that we need to get to a position now where this is concluded and we can get on with the big businesses the big issues that we have to deal with for the rest of the year.
Absolutely, Paul. I'm going to say many thanks for joining me, giving us a rundown there, and we will speak to you again on the programme. Thank you, Paul.
Thanks, MJ. All the best.
Paul O'Brien there from the IFA, and wouldn't you just love this to come to a conclusion now? I've said it here, this is the fourth week in a row I've covered this, and it doesn't seem to be going anywhere. That Dáil vote this evening is just going to be a rubber stamp. Unfortunately, the party whip has spoken, so it is going to be all votes for the government, and as Paul said, they have a majority, so it's pointless essentially. And Francie Gorman, I should say, is in the GOC meeting at the moment, and there's the meeting on Friday. But really what everybody wants, and what all farmers want, and speaking to farmers on a daily basis, is they want the chairman, Larry Murren, just to stand to one side and for Bord Bia to go back to its business of promoting Irish agriculture. And that's what farmers on the ground want. 55,000 quality assured farmers across the country, and over 100,000, I think 120,000 herd numbers there are in Ireland. Obviously not everybody is quality assured, but Bord Bia sells on behalf of all Irish farmers, and we as farmers just want confidence in it. It's as simple as that. And as Paul said, that man didn't do anything wrong. No one's claiming he did anything wrong or illegal, but confidence is shattered, I suppose, in relation to the board of Bord Bia now as a result of his chairmanship, and farmers across the country wish for him to stand aside. And I hope it is listened to, and I hope the fact that these hard-working men and women from the IFA who are up here in Dublin at the moment on what is the 11th of February, one of the busiest time of the year, and I know I spoke to Declan Hanrahan last week. He's up and down, he's calving cows from Borris and Ostry, Leishman, lots of Offaly people, lots of Westmeath people up and down as well. I'm just naming Declan as one because he was on the top of my head from last week, but lots of you have been up and down, and it is a journey. It's cold, it's wet, you should be on your farms at the moment, but you're fighting for what is right, and I hope the powers that be listen, and I just hope this is brought to a timely conclusion. That is what we all want. Going to go to an ad break now, and Paul Mooney from the Farmers Journal is going to give us a rundown on their land report. It was launched last week, and it goes county by county. How much is land worth in your county? Stay tuned and you're going to find out.
Country Life on Midlands 103.
With W.R. Shaw, family owned and serving the Midlands since 1982, we're Ireland's largest independent agri-dealer, specialising in New Holland tractors and parts. With over 40 years' experience, we provide top quality sales, service and support. Visit W.R. Shaw in Tullamore and Carlow or online at wrshaw.ie.
And you're very welcome back to Country Life here in Midlands 103. Now, land and land values. Paul Mooney is the man to speak to in relation to this. Last week's Irish Farmers Journal had their 19th annual land report. Am I right, Paul? 19 years you've been at this?
It's been going quite a while, MJ, there's no doubt.
very interesting, I have to say, Paul. A huge amount of work in it. Have it in front of me here, over 70 pages of data and info, obviously a few ads and stuff in there as well, but an awful lot of info for people and a real fine-tooth comb through the land market. If we look at the overarching figure, and that's the average price of farmland in Ireland, it's a strong figure, Paul. €12,876, up 3% from the previous year. So just shy of 13,000 per acre. Big money.
It is big money, MJ, and a small increase there. Prices actually have been reasonably stable for the last maybe 3 or 4 years, in that kind of price range of 12,000 heading for 13,000 per acre. So prices, plenty of demand there, not much supply. And as a result, farms that come in the market are generally fetching decent prices.
Yeah, if we look at the Midland counties here ourselves, Laois, Offaly, Westmeath, average price paid per acre. Offaly is the bottom of the pile on just shy of, just north, I should say, of €12,000 per acre, 12,024. So let's say 12,000 per acre in Offaly. We move across then to Westmeath. It is just north of 13,107. And then Laois, top of the pile, I suppose, look, proximity to Dublin is going to play a factor in this, €15,360. So all strong figures, Paul, but Laois, I should say, top of the tree.
Yeah, well, look, the farmland market, MJ, in County Laois has been very strong for the past couple of years, there, 3 or 4 years. And you might say now a decrease this year is kind of pause for breath. Do you know what I mean? We would tend to see that change each year in different counties. They might go up, spike up one year, and inevitably then you'll see a decrease the following year. Do you know what I mean? Or if they go up for a couple of years, MJ, you might see then a small decrease. But certainly prices have been very, very strong in Laois. They've been been on an upward trend in Westmeath and Offaly over recent years. This year, small decreases in the 3 counties.
Yeah, and when we're talking then about purchasing of land, look, I suppose I know the answer to it, but I'm going to ask it anyway. I'm presuming it's coming from the dairy sector.
Absolutely, and particularly, MJ, in the dairy counties. You know what I mean by that. I mean, in Cork, most land that comes on sale, really most farms that come up for sale are bought by dairy farmers. As you head further kind of north up the country through the Midlands and all that, beef and suckler farmers become a bigger part of the picture. Of course, most of them would be part-time, and that's particularly as you go further up, But everywhere the dairy farmer and the part-time farmer stroke business person, they account for most of the purchases of farms and land.
Yeah, let's talk about the business people and the people who aren't involved in agriculture but are looking at it from a purely business perspective. Obviously, the figures are stacking up for these people, and agriculture is a good hedge for money.
It's seen by, I think, really everybody as being quite stable, MJ, and if say a person who might have their own business in a town, whether it's a pub or a garage or whatever, and they make some money, there's very little available in terms of interest if that money is just put in the bank. Very poor returns really for that kind of home for your money. So, of course, many of these people would have farming roots, so they'd be very comfortable buying land and owning land and maybe doing a bit of part-time farming on it, or maybe I don't know what, using it for lifestyle or leasing out.
In relation to international investments, Paul, when you're putting this report together, are we seeing, we often hear of property in the likes of the UK, money coming in from Russia and from the Middle East and whatnot, international money coming in, just as a safe haven for it really. Are we seeing much international investment for Irish farmland, for those bigger parcels of land?
It's a very interesting question, MJ. The international buyers still would be important in Ireland, even though you don't hear about them an awful lot, but they would be important, and particularly for the bigger, more expensive, and I suppose let's call them what they are, more prestigious type properties. The international buyer, that includes the US, for example, and Britain, they would be important buyers on the land market, kind of low key, MJ.
If we move across to the west of Ireland and to traditionally more marginal land. Look, I suppose years ago, while you would have heard of people buying mountains in Mayo of 400 and 500 acres, and then they ended up getting single payments, basic payments on them, and ended up being a fantastic decision. And of course with nitrates it was an even better decision then as the years progressed. As a result of this, and as a result of land becoming just more and more valuable across the board, and forestry payments as well, are we seeing now that marginal land increase in value also?
It is increasing. I mean, prices have increased in the western counties there, in the likes of Roscommon and Galway and Mayo, MJ. Now,
this call is being recorded.
Maybe as quickly as in some of the eastern counties. For example, obviously the counties close to the capital, close to Dublin, that's where the huge population and the huge demand is, so prices are kind of racing ahead. The western counties are seeing an increase, but they're not closing the gap on counties like Meath and Louth and Kildare, for example.
Yeah, I'm looking at Leitrim in front of me here. I think this is the lowest in the country, just on the map as I'm flicking around on it. Just over €6,000 per acre for land in Leitrim. So obviously, you know, it's still behind, but it's not where it once was. You would have heard in years gone by picking up parcels of land in that part of the world for extremely small money, like 6,000 acres. There's nothing small about that.
It's a very good point, and each year, you know, some of the better land or the nicer parcels in Leitrim would sell for, you know, over 12,000 and 13,000 per acre, and even a bit higher. You know, typically where you might have two neighbours who want it, and you know, so that's the picture.
2026, Paul, I'll leave you on this one, but outlook, we don't see much of a change, I'm presuming.
The general outlook is exactly as you're saying, MJ. I agree with you. For a stable year, barring some kind of an international shock coming at us from across the Atlantic, because the domestic factors are really still the same, MJ. You know, we don't see any increase at all in the supply of farmland coming up for sale. And you know, dairy farmers, yes, they've taken a very severe cut in milk price there in the latter stages of 2025, but they're coming out of a period of good profitable years. So the bank balances can be, you know, for many dairy farmers are still quite healthy, you know, and so they will still be a factor. And then the great beef prices that we saw there in the second half of 2025, without a doubt, that will encourage some cattle dry stock farmers, and particularly those guys who are working part-time. You know, a lot of younger dry stock farmers, MJ, as you know well, they're working part-time and doing well, you know, earning good money off the farm. So the high beef prices will encourage some of them now to take a punt and maybe buy a bit of land in the locality when it comes up for sale.
Yeah, it's a positive picture across the entire country, Paul. And look, it is nice to see. I know some farms, some beef farms, I know we did well the last couple of years, but haven't been massively profitable. But still, once you're on an asset and you have leasing potential and whatnot, it does have an income stream there for maybe older farmers who, in years gone by, mightn't have had a pension or whatnot. So it's a positive picture.
It is a positive picture. Yeah, I think you've mentioned a very important point there, MJ, when you mentioned older farmers. I mean, older farmers, you know, many of them don't have any kind of personal pensions, for example, as you were saying there. And, you know, they will scale down the farming, but they'll keep farming and keep claiming their EU-type payments. They're checking the post. And you know, that's what they survive on. And so that's an important factor in the market. You know, maybe that's one of the reasons why there's no huge supply of land for sale.
Absolutely. Paul, many thanks. Great rundown there, and we will speak to you again on the programme.
Thanks kindly, MJ.
Paul Mooney there from the Farmers Journal, and it's a really interesting report there. It was out in last week's paper. It's available online, I believe, and I think just the interesting parts are you just are seeing land increase in value across the country, especially over in the west of Ireland, where you would have seen very, very low figures per acre in times gone by. But now, as a result of all different payments that can be obtained, that marginal land now is increasing and increasing in value year on year. Coming up after the break, we're going to continue on land with a little bit more of a local feel. Joe Coogan, auctioneer, leased 2 blocks of ground in County Laois this week, both on 10-year leases. We're going to find out how much they went for, and also what he has offer in the locality for 2026. And also Bobby Miller, another Laois man, he scooped the top gong at the Grain Awards last night, the Tirlawn Grain Awards. Grower of the Year. We're going to get a word from Bobby. Also, stay tuned.
Country Life on Midlands 103.
Brought to you by W.R. Shaw, where New Holland isn't just a brand, it's our passion. For over 40 years, we've been Ireland's trusted name for New Holland tractors, parts and farm machinery. Whether you need new, used or ex-hire tractors, we've got you covered. wrshaw.ie.
And you're very welcome back to Country Life here on Midlands 103. Now, before the break, we're talking to Paul Mooney from the Farmers Journal on land prices across the country. And now we are on a more local field. We have auctioneer Joe Coogan from County Kilkenny, who often has parcels in County Laois. Joe, many thanks for taking my call this evening.
Good evening. Thanks for having me on the radio.
You're more than welcome, Joe. We're to speak specifically about a couple of parcels of land which you leased this week in County Laois. Can you tell us more, please?
Yeah, we had an auction last Friday in Coolrain, and the auction was held in Castlecombe and Coolrain, 24 acres and 31 acres. Good grazing land, in fairness. Water supply, cattle crush, so it ticked all the boxes as far as requests are concerned. One lot made 500 per acre, and the other lot made 480 per acre. It was a 10-year lease.
Good money, very strong money, Joe, is what I'd say. Was that suspected in advance, or was it more than you thought?
I sort of could see it coming, because for the last 10 years, we've been holding land letting auctions on weekly basis this time of year. But I noticed in the last couple of years, land that was coming to the end of its 5 or 7 year term, the same people were going back in again. So there was less market land coming on the market. And since Christmas, I dealt with about 35 landowners to see would they lease their land again, the 5 or 7 years up. And the people taking it all decided they'd take it again. They weren't letting it back out in the open market. So land that went into a 5-year lease 15 years ago or 10 years ago is still tied up with the same farmer tenant, maybe a little bit more money. So there's less land coming to the open market than ever before as far as leasing land is concerned.
I suppose it goes to show you, Joe, a good tenant is worth their weight in gold, aren't they? When you see these tenants going back into the leases again, if you have land and you have an agreement with someone and you both get on, aren't you as well to crack on with it again, really?
Well, to be honest, in fairness to farmers, and I'm dealing with a huge amount of them in relation to land leasing, none of them ever let me down. I'll be honest, I would consider farming people very fair in relation to the way they conduct their business. And certainly to coincide what you're saying, if you have a farmer tenant looking after land and paying for it every year and not grazing cattle on a certain time of year when they shouldn't and they're looking after it, well, why not continue on doing business with that person?
If we go a little bit sorry, Joe, if we go a little bit further south then, down to your own neck of the woods in Kilkenny, these were Laois parcels, 480, 500. What's land making in Kilkenny? Obviously a dairy stronghold there in County Kilkenny. Yeah,
well, a few minutes before them auctions in Coolrain, we held an auction of in Dane's Fort out the water road from Kilkenny, 47 acres of tillage. It was a 7-year lease, and that made €540 per acre. It was in May last year, and good demand. That was a good few bidders interested in that piece of land, to be honest. Top quality beside the main road, but that ticked all the boxes again. But again, big money.
You're involved in the land game and the property game for years and years, Joe. 35 years, you were telling me earlier on. Did you ever see a number of years ago where you'd see land like freely making that 450, 500 per acre? Like it is a huge rent per annum on land.
Yeah, it is. But it is when I suppose you see a bit uncertainty in the dairy sector. It is. Cattle prices are going well, but I suppose land out there is scarce, and when something's scarce, there's a demand for it, and that's out there. There's demand for land. And to be honest, I was holding my breath before those auctions that go well. They did go well. They went very well. And I wouldn't be shy standing up in an auction room again if I had to lease more land at the demand that's out there. To be honest, since them auctions, and only getting inquiries for people looking for land, not people intending renting their land.
And before I let you go, Joe, anything else on the books at the moment, be it sales or leasing?
On the Laois-Kilkenny border in Atana, which is on the Laois-Kilkenny border, of 37 acres and lovely house for auction on the 6th of March, beside the public road, about 2 miles from Durham, County Laois. That's my next focus. And there's other few pieces of land I've looked at in the last couple of weeks. I also have 15 acres in Curling, County Laois, on the 20th of March coming up for sale. They're all on Fridays. And possibly the 1 or 2 more good-sized farms in County Laois may be coming to the market in April, May.
Excellent stuff. Joe, many thanks for joining me. We'll speak to you again.
Okay, thanks for having the radio. Thank you. Bye-bye. Thanks.
Joe Coogan there, auctioneer from County Kilkenny. And as Joe said, demand is what is driving the trade. And when something is scarce, as he said, it will go a higher price. And isn't that so true when it comes to land, especially land for leasing? Now, moving on to the Tirlawn Grain Awards, Laoisman Bobby Miller scooped the top gong last night, Grower of the Year. Bobby, congratulations on the award yesterday evening. You must be delighted.
Thanks very much, MJ. Yeah, no, it's a great honour for myself and my family. We have a long tradition of growing crops, so it's a nice honour for ourselves, and I'm delighted. Yeah,
well, you're a passionate tillage farmer. Look, we obviously have you on the programme here regularly as part of the Grain Growers Association, but this is part of your own personal enterprise and your own farm and your own passion for it. A lot of people supplying grain to Tirlawn, Bobby, so I suppose to get this award, give me 1 or 2 things you're doing, Bobby, that was mentioned to you last night as a reason for winning this top gong.
Well, I'd have to put down to a team effort. My own nephew was even reminded me today that to pick the stones and pull the wild oats on the farm, so it is a team effort. But it starts with the planning with my agronomist, and I pick up any advice I can anywhere as well. I had a new variety and that came through in the last couple of years called Enya. It was known for its high KPH, and that's one of the reasons I was picked out because of its high bushel, and that works well for Tirlawn Indoor Mill. And so things like that, MJ, the one key aspect of growing any crop is keeping on top of it. Timing is everything, but weather is king at the end of the day, and how the year ends up for you.
Yeah, and look, there's no point saying any different. Bobby, the tillage sector is going through a tough time at the moment, but still it must be nice to go to an event. We're down in Castlemartyr Resort. It's a beautiful hotel, and the Middleton Distillery is where this event was held last night. Must be nice to be down there, kind of, I suppose, forget about the woes of tillage for a night and chat to other growers and passionate people involved in the area and your colleagues, and forget about, I suppose, the poor prices, and just enjoy a night of reminiscing in tillage farming for the evening.
Yeah, it does reflect that there's 11 other winners on today, and it does reflect what top-class farmers, tillage farmers you have in Ireland. Tirlawn have 1,100 grain suppliers, and it was outlined how loyal those tillage farmers are to Tirlawn. It's a two-way street, but it was very nice. But pride doesn't pay the bills, and I have a lot of pride here today. But I'm delighted, and it's good to see others how they operate as well. So a good evening, a good day.
Nice that they had it down in County Cork, down in the Middleton Distillery, Bobby. It's the pinnacle, I suppose, of where Irish barley goes. Middleton whiskey being one of the most expensive whiskies in the world, but it shows you what quality we do grow here to produce such a product.
Yeah, no, it is my first time down to the distillery there, and it was good to see where our raw material ends up. Obviously, there's a big difference between what we get for our grain and what a bottle of Middleton very rare makes in the shops. But it was good to see where and how the operation works down there. The drinks industry, we know worldwide and in Ireland, for several reasons, is experiencing low demand or slow demand. Not the drinks industry, is the spirits industry, more so the whiskey industry. But there is chinks of good news there, the likes of the Indian market, the tariffs being halved there, so there's chinks of light there. But I do hope that the drinks industry recognises the fact that we are struggling as tillage farmers Joe Coogan on there, and the prices he's mentioning would put us on the road very quickly, unfortunately.
And that market, that letting market, as we know, for years and years, was dominated by yourselves, Bobby, by the tillage sector. But as you say, those prices, there won't be tillage farmers involved, and that is where, I suppose, as you say, you're looking for the likes of the drinks industry, the likes of those higher value industries, then to put back and ensure that the growers can continue to grow.
Absolutely. They have a role to play, like the drinks industry. There are big multinationals involved here in Ireland. You have the Pernod Ricards and you have the Diageos of this world. They're big, huge multinationals, and they need to recognise where the raw material comes from. And we do need to recognise native Irish grain in the bigger picture of things as well at present. We know the Borbia situation at the present, but we have 750,000 tonnes coming in annually from Mercosur countries, and we don't have recognition for native Irish grain in the marketplace, where we do have for beef, lamb, pig, poultry. We'd like to see our fellow farmers supporting Irish tillage farmers first and foremost.
Absolutely, Bobby. Well said. Couldn't say it better myself. I'm going to leave it there, Bobby. We're just out of time and I'm going to a break, but I'm going to say again, congratulations on the award. No doubt we'll be chatting about tillage as the year progresses, and many thanks for joining me, Bobby.
And thank you very much, MJ. Thanks for the call.
Bobby Miller there from the Irish Grain Growers Association, but also in his own personal capacity there, himself and his family, they won the Grain Grower of the Year at the Tirlán Grain Awards last night. So a great award there, and well deserved to Bobby. Now, moving on, after the break, going to be talking to Joe Kelleher from Teagasc, all about organics. He's out in Germany at a huge trade show, so he's going to talk to me about that and what's on offer out there, so stay tuned.
Country Life on Midlands 103.
With W.R. Shaw. Looking for the best in farm machinery? We've been supplying top quality New Holland tractors and parts and providing service since 1982. Our expert team is here to keep your farm running smoothly, with branches in Tullamore and Carlow. Visit wrshaw.ie today.
And you're very welcome back to Country Life here in Midlands 103. Now, organics is what we're speaking about, and we have Joe Kelleher from Teagasc joining us all the way from Germany. Joe, many thanks for taking my call this evening.
No problem, MJ.
A little about where you are currently, Joe, and what you're doing out in Germany. We're going to talk about new entrance to the organic scheme then, but tell us a little bit first about your business trip that you're on there.
Yeah, we're at the Biofact Trade Fair here in Nuremberg. It's the largest organic trade fair in Europe. It's countries from all over Europe and the world exhibiting their products, and so it really gives you a sense of the size of the organic market that's out there when you see the scale of this trade fair. And one of our primary reasons for being out here is we're involved in a project in the Midwest Bio District, which is in Limerick, Clare and Tipperary, where we're looking at trying to increase the consumption of organic produce in that area. And we're visiting a bio district in the Regensburg area of Bavaria there on Friday, so that's part of the trip.
And the fair, the Biofact Fair, Joe, when you're walking around it, tell us what you're seeing. What sort of products are on offer there? Is it aimed for supermarkets? Is it aimed for like large consumers? What exactly is it when you're popping around?
Yeah, there's a lot of kind of ingredients for people that would be manufacturing, adding value to products. So you'd have a lot of like oils and nuts and milk powders are a big part of it. Protein is a big kind of word at the moment. You're seeing protein mentioned in a lot of the stands out there. So there's a lot of what we call B2B, business-to-business sales. But that's anything you can think of really in terms of organic range of ingredients on display there.
And you're talking then about increasing organic consumption in areas in Ireland, Limerick, Clare and Tip, and you're going to pop to this area tomorrow to have a look at it. I know we are a long way behind in relation to the amount of land we farm organically here in Ireland and the continent, but obviously that ensues then that we're behind on consumption also, I presume.
Yes, we are. The Irish market will be worth about 200 million in terms of food and drink, the organic market. Whereas if you take the German market where we are, it's worth 15 billion. It's huge. So, but that then probably presents export opportunities for us, particularly the likes of beef and lamb, where we have a surplus of produce. So there is market opportunity. There is huge demand out here for us. And we have companies in Biofact such as Good Herdsman and Irish Country Meats advertising their products here. So it presents an opportunity as well.
So people in the continent then, Joe, when they are purchasing their weekly shopping or going to their supermarkets, they're consciously looking for organic products, I would imagine, as opposed to in Ireland you might pop one in here and there, but it wouldn't exactly be you're going out of your way to get it.
Yeah, and I suppose the other thing is it's easier for them to get it. You know, there's more range of products in front of them. There's more availability of products. They're more visible on the shop shelves in front of them. But for example, like the Swiss, the average consumer in Switzerland is buying in excess of €400 per capita. So a family of five would be spending in excess of 2,500, we'd say, on organic produce across the year. In Ireland, we're a tenth of that figure at just over €40. So again, that market is growing. Or real figures would show, stats would show that the demand for organic produce is increasing year on year, and that the younger generation do seem to be wanting more organic produce in their shopping basket.
Well, on that then, Joe, a press release came in very timely today. Minister Hayden welcomes 269 new organic farmers to the organic farming scheme for this current year, and that brings us up to, if I could find it here in front of me, it is 170,000 hectares have been added in 5 years. We've over 5,700 organic farmers now in Ireland. So it is growing and growing and growing.
It is, yeah. No, we've seen a trebling, I suppose, of numbers in the last 3 years. So we've seen huge growth. There's been, in particular, the beef and sheep sectors have seen a big swing towards organics. I suppose the transition for those two sectors in particular is a lot shorter to make. You know, they would be typically extensive and low fertilizer users. So that's why we're seeing large numbers of them coming in. But yeah, no, it has been a huge success in terms of the number of farmers on the amount of land that we've got in the last few years.
And those people who are farming organically, then there is more interest now in organic farming, organic milk farming, I should say, priced at over 70 cents per litre. Like the uptake is low, but you're saying there could be an opportunity for this year coming, just given low conventional milk prices. Yeah,
and I'm seeing it there at the moment. There's a lot of interest, a lot of phone calls coming through there in the last month in particular, because there was about 30 centre plus margin there in organic milk at the moment. All the three processors that are processing organic milk will be paying north of 75 cents, albeit for winter milk at the moment. So that's a significant premium, you know. So yeah, it does present opportunities for dairy farmers to look maybe a bit closer at organic farming as an option.
And just looking at the figures here in an article in yesterday's Farming Indo, which you were referenced in, around 1,000 fully converted organic cows whose milk can now be sold as organic. So, like, look, obviously it's small scale in comparison to our conventional side of things, but still, 1,000 farmers is 1,000 farmers.
It is, yeah. Well, it's 1,000 cows. So, you know, even if you were to give them 5,000 or 6,000 litres, that's 5 or 6 million litres of milk extra, which is a lot in the organic scale. I think there's about 16 million litres of milk being processed organically, so 5 or 6 onto that is an increase of 25%. So it's a significant boost, and these are guys, the farmers that would have come in 2 years ago, so they've their conversion done, and they're fully organic as of the 1st of January just got. So that milk is now available to process to turn into added value organic produce.
Yes, apologies, 1,000 cows as opposed to 1,000 farmers. But as you say, the uptake is there. But look, I suppose 70 cents a litre, you do need it. You need every penny of it, Joe. When you are trying to produce organically, it's lower stocking rate, it's higher cost, I suppose, in relation to organic feed and whatnot. So these farmers they're going to be looking for it all.
They will, yeah. Look, the costs are a bit higher. The feed is higher in particular. That's the big one. Yes, you have savings in the fertiliser bill, which typically offsets it. The drop in stocking rate sometimes maybe isn't as much as people would think. You know, if you have farmers there with good levels of clover and soil fertility fairly right, you know, they can go 10 or 11 tonne of grass with clover is right, and that can carry a stocking rate of 1.7, 1.8. If you take the national average farmers at 2.1, it's not that much of a drop. So, you know, the stocking rate sometimes can be overestimated, the drops that's required. Yeah, it's decent. Joe, I'm just out of time. I could chat to you on and on about it. A really interesting area, and thanks so much for taking the call when you're abroad like this. But great just to get a feel for what you're up to out in Germany. We will speak to you again on the programme, Joe, and thank you for joining us. No problem, MJ. Good to talk to you.
Joe Kelleher there from Teagasc, joining us live from Germany at the Biohack Conference, and it is one of the biggest ones globally. So great that we got a word from Joe this evening, and you can see that there is more and more interest in the area. I thought the figure for this year was actually a little bit low on 226 people joining the organic farming scheme for 2026, but they were the figures that were announced today. That's it for this evening's programme. I'd like to thank you all for joining me here over the course of the last hour. We started back an hour ago with an update from the IFA. We'll see how that Dáil vote goes this evening, but we know it's essentially a rubber stamp. There's not going to be anything different in it. Paul Mooney from the Farmers Journal was speaking to us about land prices, as was Joe Coogan there from County Kilkenny, Bobby Miller from County Laois on his award last night, and we finished with Joe Kelleher there from Teagasc, live from Germany. The show is repeated Sunday morning 7am through to 8am. I'll be back with you next Wednesday evening at 7pm as always. You can get us wherever you get your podcasts. If you type in MJ space Clery, Clery, we will pop up. We're also available on YouTube, so you can listen to the programme there. And as always, we will speak to you next Wednesday evening at 7pm. We'll speak to you then. Good night.